Go to Bangkok and speak to Phil Robertson, the Deputy Asia Director of Human Rights Watch. Welcome to the program, Phil. Always appreciate your appearances. Let me just give 3 quotes to the viewers after this meeting of foreign ministers of the ASEAN group of nations. Indonesia's foreign minister sat there and spoke to the world's media, talking about how much money ASEAN has received for humanitarian aid to be dispersed in Myanmar. It's only $27 million. She says ASEAN has never discussed expulsion of Myanmar from the bloc. I was quite surprised about that one. And then she said, we, the ASEAN foreign ministers, have expressed concern over no significant implementation of the 5-point consensus on Myanmar. In other words, the transition to democracy as proposed to the junta by ASEAN. That's extremely insipid stuff.
Yes, I mean, and once again, ASEAN has really underwhelmed the world with its comments on Myanmar. The reality is that this is a crisis point, and ASEAN doesn't appear prepared to deal with it.
Phil, you were telling us about the ASEAN foreign ministers meeting in Jakarta, after which they've effectively taken no action and pretty much said that they are almost helpless. At least there's an admission, reading between the lines of the statements coming out of their meeting, regarding how to persuade Myanmar's military junta not only to stop killing their own people, but also to hand back the country to a democratic system.
Yeah, it was a really statement that reflected business as usual at a time of crisis, and really not ASEAN's finest hour. What they should have been doing is coming up with key solutions, like coming up with a plan to benchmark progress, to actually say, in a time-delimited way, what they expect from Myanmar to do, and if Myanmar doesn't do it, what they'll do next. But instead, they were basically praising themselves for continuing to fight the good fight, and to say they were going to make some recommendations to the ASEAN leaders next month. It's totally underwhelming. What we're seeing is that ASEAN is, I think, just not quite ready for this challenge. They've said that they want to have ASEAN centrality in solving the situation in Myanmar, and the European Union and the countries in North America and elsewhere have gone along with that. But I think that we've run to the end of that road now.
Phil, what's happening inside Myanmar in terms of, you have various groups of rebels that are opposed to the junta, and there was just a few days ago in Rakhine State, the military junta is actually denying it, but at least 60 people are believed to have died from an airstrike, and only the military can carry out that kind of attack from the air. And then you've got the civilian resistance, which pretty much sprang up very soon after the coup early last year.
Well, so the fighting is continuing across the country. We're seeing civilian militias, these People's Defense Forces, active in areas across the country. We saw the airstrike that killed at least 60 people in Kachin State. They bombed a concert. There were people performing on the stage, and bombs dropped into the middle of the concert goers, killing at least 60 and injuring more than 100. And then the military allegedly blocked first responders, medical people, from getting to the wounded. There's a degree of barbarity that we're seeing from the Myanmar military junta that is really off the charts. We have been documenting crimes against humanity that are being committed on a daily basis in Myanmar, and there needs to be accountability. But instead, what we get is the international community saying that ASEAN has to solve it. And ASEAN comes up with the kind of statement that we saw today, which was basically meaningless and bereft of any sort of clear policy directions for the bloc to do anything substantive on Myanmar. So, this just goes around and around and around as the situation on the ground in Myanmar gets much worse and more atrocities are committed against the Burmese people by the military there.
And not only ASEAN, of course, because Bangladesh will be watching very closely what happens. There are 1.2 million minimum Rohingya refugees, the Muslim minority that fled that persecution by the military a few years ago, living in Bangladesh. And we have reports over the past couple of days of 2 or 3 people being killed, Rohingya refugees in Cox's Bazar, that massive, how do you describe it, a refugee camp, a slum, where they're living in awful conditions. The Rohingya are left with nowhere to go, but Bangladesh can't do anything because for years they've been saying, look, we're resource poor and we're land poor as well. We don't have the space for them. We don't have the money to take care of them.
Right. Well, the fundamental problem is that there's no political will in Myanmar amongst this military government to take the Rohingya back. They're more than content to allow them to rot on the Bangladesh side of the border. And the international community has pressured Myanmar to enter talks to allow for some sort of dignified return with full rights of citizenship and other things for the Rohingya people, and it's gone nowhere. I think the Rohingya also are reflecting on the fact that, they don't want to really return to a situation where it's a military government that is controlled because it was the military that committed crimes against humanity and acts of genocide against them in 2017 and drove them all out to Bangladesh. So, there's no real faith in the good intent of the Myanmar military junta. The Rohingya learned it the hard way, and they're going to wait until it's really truly safe for them to go back.
Phil Robertson, thank you very much indeed. Phil Robertson from Human Rights Watch.